So I wanted to document this because I think it's worthwhile. So this is a Pentair and Intelliflo keypad module, or whatever you want to call it. Essentially, this plugs into the driver board for the Intelliflo system. This is the driver board right here. So this actually controls this part here. Actually controls like the motor, the 3 horsepower motor, and whatever is in here, whether it's contactors or a large motor controller or whatever, that's all here. So all of your high voltage, high power stuff is handled by this. The actual logic of how that gets controlled is implemented in the keypad itself. And our pool pump failed, so I took it apart and I took a look at what was going on, and I realized that, like, after taking this all apart, there was a big pool of water in here. And it caused a bunch of corrosion in this keypad module itself. There's buttons in here, and there's a circuit board, and the backside of the circuit board underneath all this was very corroded. You can see some of the rust that formed around this DB9 connector here. So normally this wouldn't be a problem, except that these modules, A, you cannot get them from Pentair. B, if you were to get them online, they cost at least $200, $300, $400. And 3, I can't actually find one that uses this connector. This actually adapts to RS485, a serial connection. This plugs into the board to actually control the driver board. All the commands are sent through this. So this ends up being a very expensive piece to replace, and it's actually pretty simplistic because what's on here is essentially the same hardware as like an Arduino. And the reason that this failed, the reason that I can think of, is this module plugs in here. It mates with this connector, and that's your keypad right there. And then there's this rubber shroud or button panel that gets adhered through a square of adhesive over here just to seal this up, and then there's also adhesive on this pad. It's kind of similar to how microwaves work, or like how microwaves are constructed with their tactile buttons or whatever. The problem is that this is rubber. This is meant to be a piece that sits outside. Now they have a sunshade like flap that you can order for your pump if it's going to be in the sun, and that's going to help prevent any sort of degradation or anything like that. But the problem is that, like, here in Wisconsin, we have winters, right? And like it gets cold. So just like over the years of heating and cooling, this will fail. And this is essentially the only rubber gasket between the outside world and then this very important controller that shouldn't cost a lot of money because it's fairly inexpensive for electronics, but ends up being a lot because it's not necessarily a boutique sort of thing, but it is not exactly the easiest thing to come by. So this module itself, if you look at the back, it says it's IP66 rated. That essentially means that it's going to be resistant up to I think for like boats it's like waves and stuff like that, and pretty bad rain, but it's not rated for being submerged. That would be fine, but this module itself, I don't know how they're able to get that IP rating and apply it to this module when the entire weatherproofing is provided by this stupid rubber shroud. And this is something that, like, they still make these controllers. This needs a fundamental redesign, and honestly, this should be something that should be warranted, and this is something that should be honestly, I think, recalled and redesigned, because this is just such a poor implementation. Now, they have kits out there that you can get where you can relocate this panel and put it somewhere that it's not going to be, susceptible to the weather. But I want to repeat, like, this is a pool cover controller. This is something that is going to be out in the elements. Whether or not it's indirect in the sun, a piece of rubber like this is not good enough to protect this controller. So I'd really like to see, some sort of redesign with this. And it's never going to happen because, pool equipment is not like a laptop or something like that. So you're not selling millions upon millions of these, but this is just wholly unacceptable. And like, I don't know if you can see it here, probably not, but there's like water underneath this display because there's nothing preventing, once this seal is broken, there's nothing preventing this from being exposed to the elements. And it would be fine if this and this, the rubber module and this, could be replaced. That's all you really need. You don't need this case. You might need the cord behind it, this connector, because that might corrode. But like this and this is the only pieces you need. And really, with the circuitry that's in here, maybe $100, and you're still profiting off of parts. So let me know if that you've had the same problem. But yeah, I mean, Pentair, you got to get your act together. This is just unacceptable.